And good evening, and welcome to this week's edition of the Pete Mezzetti Show. My guest this evening is Susan Bransfield, the first selectman of the town of Portland. Susan, welcome. How are you?
Great to be here. Good to see you,
Good
Pete.
to see you again. It's been a while.
It has, yeah.
So besides being first selectman of the town of Portland, I understand that you are actually also retired president of CCM.
That's right. They give me now. I ended my term as president December 31st. So now for a year, I'm the immediate past president and still involved in trying to help out and make sure that cities and towns are well represented.
Exactly. But especially with what's going on with the state of Connecticut, how does that? How does CCM work on that aspect of the spectrum?
There's a lot of things that CCM does. They do a lot of advocacy for cities and towns. We do training for new first selectmen or new mayors. We try to put people in touch with one another so that if they have a problem or a question, we can put them in touch with another person that has the answers and has done it before. We also run the Connecticut Interlocal Risk Management Agency, which is insurance. So they provide an insurance product for workmen's compensation, and they also provide an insurance product for municipalities and schools and other nonprofits for liability, accident, and property, the LAP program. So in terms of the breadth of things that CCM does, it's really up to the membership. But they concentrate on advocating for healthy cities and towns and also training.
And you guys deal with all 169 towns in the state of Connecticut, correct?
Yep. And we're proud that 168 towns are members of CCM, which is an all-time high. We just have one more town that we hope at some point, I believe it's Woodstock, Connecticut. They're still contemplating, we'll say, whether they'll join. But to have a strong network of almost every city and town together, trying to tell our state government what our needs are, and also to help run better cities and towns. It's a great organization, and I've been very proud to be a member and very grateful for the work and the help that they've given me over the years.
That's right. Now, who is the current president?
Yeah, the current president is Mayor Neil O'Leary, and Neil is the mayor of the city of Waterbury.
All right.
So he's doing a great job, and he's very active in many aspects of trying to help the state and cities and towns. And he's also been very active in trying to address the opioid epidemic, and has been a strong voice in trying to help mitigate that disastrous situation.
Exactly.
That hurt so many families and individuals. So I give him all the support I can. Mayor O'Leary's doing a fantastic job as president of CCM.
Definitely. And we also, speaking, if we're going to go down the chain of command of CCM, we missed one. My buddy.
Oh, Joe DeLong.
Yes.
Yes, he's the executive director.
Yes, he is.
And he does a lot of work. He's always on the road and always trying to speak on behalf of cities and towns. And he's got a couple of ads that he has on some of various stations throughout Connecticut.
I saw one this morning, as a matter of fact.
Yep. And it's trying to bring attention to the fact that our legislature and our governor need to try to right the ship, try to improve the way they provide services and the way that they fund cities and towns. As we all know, if you can't miss it, the state of Connecticut is very challenged, and very challenged in terms of how its finances are being managed.
Exactly. Speaking of finances, speaking of money, speaking of the state of Connecticut, how does the financing of what's going on up at the state, up at the Capitol, affect the town of Portland?
Well, over the last couple of years, there's been reductions in the amount of revenue, the amount of dollars that the state shares with our town. And I can speak specifically to our town. We're not the only one. Many towns have seen reductions in the amount of revenue that it's not giving to cities and towns, but rather it's the redistribution. Because certainly every person who lives in Connecticut contributes, whether it's through their income tax payments or it is through sales tax or it's fees that they pay at the Department of Motor Vehicles.
Right.
We all contribute to the greater good and certainly to the coffers.
Right.
And what our governor and legislators do is they determine how those dollars are spent and how they are delivered to cities and towns. And one of the biggest grants that is given to cities and towns is the Education Cost Sharing Grant.
Okay.
And for many towns, that's critical for good delivery of education to the students in the schools. And that's the grant that has really been under attack and has hurt our towns. We lost about $800,000 from year over year for the town of Portland, and that's equal to about $1 million.
Yep.
And as I think most people realize, it happened, I think it's over 120 days after the start of the fiscal year. So it wasn't until October 31st that a budget was passed.
Right.
And it should have been ready in June.
Yes.
For the July 1 start of the fiscal year. And what that means is it was very hard for cities and towns to adjust at the end of October to either the reduction or the changes in the amount of money that they thought they might have been getting back in the spring. And to add a little insult to injury, after that was passed, the governor had to and decided to have holdbacks on some of the monies that we thought were going to be coming. So not only were the grants reduced through the legislative action and the budgetary process, but then because there's still a deficit at that point, and I think there still is one now, there was further holdbacks of dollars going back to cities and towns. So it's not just the loss of the money, but it's the lack of planning, and certainly this distribution of dollars that some might argue is not always done fairly.
Exactly. And what's going on in Portland?
Well, we have a lot of fun things going on. One thing that I wanted to mention, and maybe the next time you come to Portland, there's a new restaurant that just opened at Portland Golf Course. I think a lot of your viewers may be golfers. I hope they come to Portland. There's not only Portland Golf Course, but there's also Quarry Ridge and Portland Golf West. We have 3 golf courses in our town. And Fox on the Green, which is a well-known restaurant in Middletown. In Middletown, it's the Red Fox restaurant, and now they've opened another restaurant in Portland, and it's a favorite of many people. And it just opened last week, I think on Friday. It opened the 30th of March. So we're proud of that. Proud of all the restaurants that we have in our town, but we're welcoming a new one. And then we also are looking forward to the redevelopment of what used to be Elmcrest Hospital. Now it's going to be called Brainerd Place. And Brainerd Place is a mixed-use development. We're going to have about 230 apartments. And add to that about 100,000 square feet of commercial space, which will include a pharmacy, a coffee shop, we hope another restaurant, as well as some office space. And another aspect of this development that I'm really proud of is there's going to be the renovation and rehabilitation of 3 very historic houses that are on that property. One of which used to be lived in by one of the quarry owners, the brownstone quarry owners. Another one of the houses, Elizabeth Hart Jarvis lived there, and she was married to Sam Colt. So there's a little bit of a connection between Coltsville and Portland with that. And then the third house was occupied by someone who was a famous ornithologist, and his name was Mr. Sage. And it brings a new flavor to a development if you can dig into the history and know a little bit about what used to be there in the 1800s and the 1900s, and bring it forward to the 2000s and see how we live today with a nod to how important our history is, because our history is what really makes our town, makes the city, makes wherever you live that special place that we all love.
I was going to say, the town of Portland sounds like a very rich in history type of town.
Yeah, I think, every town in the lower Connecticut River Valley has a story to tell, and it's really special, and that's what I love about living in this area.
And you've been first selectwoman in Portland for how long?
About 14 and a half years.
Okay.
I'm in my 8th term. So I've been doing the job for a while. I really enjoy it very much. Have seen the ups and downs of, we were talking about fiscal situations, and look forward to, hopefully, after the elections this November, a very important November is coming up with our governor and all of our legislators who will be elected, and hopefully find a solution going forward.
There you go. And what do you think one of the solutions could be that would affect the town of Portland?
Well, I really believe that there is a better way to deliver services. One of the things that we need to look at is, are we doing everything that we should be doing? Or could we share some of the services with another community or deliver it in a different way? From simply sharing, which we do now in some degree, we share some of the equipment. We share a senior van with Cromwell, and we share a backhoe, and we share some sewer equipment with Cromwell, and we also share our dispatching services with the city of Middletown.
You know what? We're going to talk about that when we come back.
Okay.
We'll be right back.
With newspapers and media outlets merging all over the country, communities are losing their local voice.
There's so much going on in the community that I think doesn't really, there's a lot of folks who are unaware of it. And I think things like this can bring it out into the community and in that way kind of bring the community together.
Information to our residents is the key to good governance. And with the national media and local media not often covering us, this is an excellent opportunity for us constantly to communicate with our constituents and also to have them communicate with us.
The best outcomes will be achieved through a community-based organization that grows its operation and scale by means of locally produced programming.
All of our content is volunteer produced, so we do shows from talk shows to music shows, working with high schools.
VSC TV is committed to ensuring that the investment made to secure these powerful tools will pay great dividends in the community for many, many years.
And welcome back to this week's edition of the Pete Mezzetti Show. Sitting here with Susan Bransfield from the town of Portland. Susan, welcome back.
Good to be here.
Nice to be back. So, Susan, we were talking about the first segment about a little bit of state and local and all that other fun stuff. Let's open up this segment talking about riverfront improvements.
Sure. In the town of Portland, we like to boast, of course. Towns always boast a little bit. We have, we think, the town that has the most riverfront along the Connecticut River, in that there's a bend in the river. And so 2 borders of Portland is actually the Connecticut River. Let's see, it would be the west side and the south side are the Connecticut River. And for many, many years, much of the area along the river has been industrialized. And we have some petroleum tank farms that still operate. There is one where we have a very successful business where they provide the oil, they house the oil for companies to come and get the oil and deliver it and so forth and so on. And there's another area where the tanks are no longer being used and the property is for sale. And the town of Portland wrote a grant to the Department of Economic and Community Development, and we did some investigation and determined that it is a brownfield, which means it's a former industrialized property that has some contamination that needs to be cleaned up before it can be repurposed and reused for commercial opportunity. So we have a grant in place. It's now we have a $750,000 grant to remove the tanks and clean up the soil and be able to bring it back to some new commercial development right along the river. And I'll add, Pete, it's right across the street from the Brownstone Exploration and Discovery Park, which has been a very successful outdoor recreation facility that is also, the quarry itself is owned by the town, and so we get a fee from that company every year to help us pay for town services and things.
Really?
So if we can clean up across the street, it can be a very nice addition to the riverfront. As we were preparing to purchase the property, we became aware, as you often do when you're buying property,
Right.
that there's another aspect that we need to investigate.
Uh-oh.
So before we will propose purchasing, we're looking at it's a feed line, it's a pipeline that goes, the way we get oil is there's a jet line that comes out of New Haven. It's owned, most of it's owned by Buckeye Pipeline, and it comes up from New Haven and actually goes up to Westover Air Force Base in Massachusetts.
Okay.
And along the way, there's opportunity to feed other areas, and one of those feeds comes under the river to Portland. And this particular space that we're trying to buy along the river had years ago, back in 1980s,
All right.
they had built a pipe that would come from that feed that is owned by Buckeye Pipeline. They put their own pipe in and they brought it up to the land that we're looking to buy. However, there needs to be some additional work done by the owner of that property on the pipeline before we can proceed. So they're going to hopefully clean it up and we'll be able to proceed. I bring it up because it's an example of when you're taking an industrialized property and repurposing it, does devil's in the details about making sure things get done. We're hopeful that that'll occur, and then we can get to work with removing the tanks and cleaning the soils, and we're looking forward to, as I said, some commercial opportunities, whether it's some outdoor entertainment, some restaurants, or even office space, some type of facility that could be useful to us and clean up the river. It's a good thing to clean up the river.
And now, start to finish, how long should this take?
It should take, once it gets to, a couple years. Couple years. The other thing that we're doing, speaking of trying to make our town high quality of life, we're looking to rebuild some ball fields in Portland.
I saw that. We're going to talk about that now, so let's
may as well
go for it.
Yep. It's an old tobacco farm that the town has the land. We bought the land quite a few years ago, and we're looking forward to putting in 2 soccer fields and 2 baseball fields, and also some playground equipment, and hopefully a splash pad for children.
There you go.
And a walking track that would be very, very welcome for people in town.
Now, as far as, and I know we didn't talk about this in the first segment, as far as what's going on with the town of Portland and the budget after the, should I use the word wonderful winter we had?
Yeah, it's still going on.
It is still going on.
As I was coming into your studio, I saw you still had some of that white snow out there.
Exactly.
How's
Portland doing?
Well, we are a little over budget in terms of snow removal and road materials. We have a lot of cleanup. It's not the worst winter in terms of budget, I will tell you, Pete.
Good.
I think 2011 and 2010 were really bad years when seemed like we had mountains of snow. This year we've had frequency of snows, but the cost for removal hasn't been as great as it's been in the past, but it is a little over what we had predicted that it would be.
Roughly, how much does it cost to remove snow?
Oh, I don't know.
Give or take.
Well, let's see. Probably over the course of the year, if you combine the overtime and the materials, you're probably looking at $100,000 for a town our size, something like that. So we do our best guess.
Right.
And it's not just the overtime and paying for staff to work on Sundays and around the clock at night or holidays, but we also have to get repairs done to the plows. You have to do repairs to the trucks. You have to replace tires if need be. And then, of course, with the spring cleanup, we're looking at fixing the lawns, putting those mailbox boxes back up that we might have taken down. And then we're also, because we had storms where a lot of brush came down, we're looking at doing some storm cleanup to help our residents remove some of that brush that's along the roadside. So there's a lot of cleanup going on. Our public works crew do really a fabulous job, and we give them a lot of accolades because they keep us safe,
right?
And they also make the town look good.
Exactly. And I'm sure a couple during the last winter storms we had. Obviously your offices were open did you guys need to open as a warming center, or was everybody okay?
We did open. Our library is typically open until 8 o'clock at night, many nights. And then our senior center is open. We did not have to open a shelter.
Good.
But we did have people who lost power in a few storms, 2 or 3 of the storms. Some of our folks were out for 3 or 4 days.
Wow.
Fortunately, it wasn't bitter cold.
No.
But it was getting there. And my office works very close with emergency management, as well as with Eversource, to bring that power back. And I would say that we were successful. I just wish people didn't have to lose power at all.
I know.
That's a challenge.
It is. It is. So what else for the remainder of this year, going into next year? What's going to be going on with CCM? Obviously, we're going to have a new governor, maybe a new legislature going on.
Yeah, well, those are very important things to look at. Right. One of the things that CCM does is they issue candidate bulletins. So they ask folks what they think are important issues. Then they take those issues and they present the different aspects of it and try to give a balanced approach. So that when you look at the issue of pension reform, or you look at the issue of sharing services, or other aspects of state government, if you read these candidate bulletins, it gives you some ideas on what questions you may want to ask those people that have put their name in the ring. And I always give credit to anybody who runs for public office, because it's not an easy job to run for public office. And while you may not agree with all of the policies or the philosophies or their actual actions, I give every person who runs for office a great deal of praise, because we need more people to do what they're doing, and that is be brave, put their name out there, say what they believe, and vote for the person that you think best represents you.
Exactly.
It's important.
It is. Now, did you have to fill out one of those surveys, or did they just do it for...
They do it mostly for statewide offices.
They don't do it for local.
Not so much. That's usually done more at the local level itself. Just being on your show is an opportunity to talk about some of the issues that are important. And I think as a democracy, the more we dialogue and the more we talk about things, the better off we are.
Exactly, definitely. And it's definitely the way to do things.
That's
and
right.
We have a little bit more time left, so what else would we...
One last thing I wanted to talk about, and I don't know, we may have talked about it the last time I was here. In Portland, there used to be the airline railroad that ran used to run from New York City to Boston. And it ran through Connecticut, and the reason it called it airline is it was the quickest way to get to Boston. So it went through western Connecticut and then over into eastern Connecticut. And it got abandoned over time, because now, as you know, the rail line goes along the shoreline. So the piece that was in Portland, we have 2.7 miles of the rail that had been taken away. And so now, working with Eversource, who owns the land, we have a license agreement. The State Department of Energy and Environmental Protection gave us a grant of money to flatten out the land, put down some stone and some stone dust, and it's now a trail. that we're going to open up at the very beginning of May. We're going to have a ribbon cutting, and it will connect to the trail that's already, and it's already been in East Hampton for a long time.
Cool.
And it goes all the way out to Willimantic. It's a place to walk, run. If you have a horse, take your horse out there, as well as your bicycle.
Wow.
No motorized traffic.
Nope.
But it's a great way to enjoy the outdoors in a safe way.
Very cool.
So if you're in Portland, come over to our Airline Trail.
Exactly, and hopefully you said it's going to open in sometime in May?
Yes.
You believe?
Yep. As soon as the snow stops.
Yeah. Hopefully soon.
Hopefully by May.
Hopefully soon with the snow stuff that's going to all go away. We've got a little bit more time. So what else do we want to talk about going?
Well, I think that in terms of running a town, it's really very, very interesting. And one of the things that I think is always important to point out is how important our schools are to our communities.
Oh yeah.
And we have a wonderful school system, as does the town you live in, I know.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the things that I'm very proud of is one of our teachers.
Yeah, that's right. We talked about this before.
We did, before we came on air.
Right.
One of our teachers, her name is Sarah Harris, and she had a grant from National Geographic Society to travel to Antarctica. And she's going to be doing a presentation at Portland Library, talk about all the wonderful things that she learned, and she's going to teach us.
Excellent. Susan Bransfield, I want to thank you for coming down.
Pete.
Hopefully we'll see you again soon.
Good seeing you. Thanks for having me.
No problem. On behalf of Sue Bransfield, I'm Pete Mezzetti. Thanks, good night, and we'll see you next time.